नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल दोस्तों। स्वागत है आपका एक बार फिर से हमारे YouTube चैनल ब्रास फ्यूजन्स पर, जहां हम आपके लिए एक बार फिर से लेकर आए हैं एक नया लेसन।
The term secession of territory can become a part of Article 130C through a constitutional amendment. So subsequent, the Parliament can bring about an amendment through Article 368 and insert the word of acquisition and secession of territory under Article 130C. And therefore give this power to the Parliament to cede the territory. I hope this interpretation it was clear with this argument, or what the court was saying, that we cannot hold that Parliament does not have the power to cede the territory. Why? Because, or there is a complete exclusion. There is no possibility that the Union government or the Parliament can cede the territory. Why? Because first of all, preamble is not part of Constitution, so we are not going to look into what a preamble says in order to ascertain whether such a power can in fact be found in the Union government or the Parliament. And second, because Parliament does have the constituent power. The constituent power is vested in the Parliament, and if the Parliament so wants, it can add the word secession to Article 130C and give itself the power to cede the territory in favor of a foreign nation. So that is why this entire argument that the outer boundary of India can never ever be destroyed or interfered with is something which is completely absurd and an extreme form of argument which is being taken, and we do not agree with this argument. Okay, so and it seems very logical, obviously, that you cannot argue that when we say that it is an indestructible union, the boundaries of India can never be destroyed, and India does not have the power to cede the territory. Parliament does have the power to cede the territory. Subsequently, what the court did was it went into the meaning of sovereignty, okay, and what does sovereignty imply? Now, we already discussed that sovereignty implies the control of a sovereign over its internal and external affairs, and that also means a complete exercise of sovereign power, both de jure and de facto power. And this is very important. Please remember this distinction, that there is something called de jure sovereignty and there is something called de facto sovereignty. De jure sovereignty when it means that you have sovereign power in law, but you are not exercising control over that territory. Okay? The effective control lies with someone else. Let's take the example of Pak-occupied Kashmir. India says that we have de jure sovereignty over POK, but because POK is under the occupation of Pakistan, therefore we do not have de facto sovereignty over POK. Okay, the effective control over that territory does not lie with India. The effective control is with someone else. So generally, in cases of occupation, while de jure sovereignty vests with someone else, de facto sovereignty vests with someone else. Now, an absolute sovereignty would imply a conflation of both de jure and de facto sovereignty, such that a state is exercising both de jure and de facto sovereignty. Now, and please remember this distinction, because this distinction will become, so I'm just giving you some of the points that you should remember, and please remember that, because we are going to pick up those points up in subsequent judgments. That what happens, for example, what happens if a state has de facto sovereignty and not de jure sovereignty? Would that amount to secession? Or if someone has de jure sovereignty and not de facto sovereignty, would the transfer of that specific land to another state amount to secession? So these are important questions that come into picture. But Derubari Union is basically dealing with a case where it was ascertained that over Derubari Union, India exercises both de jure and de facto sovereignty. Now, if either one of them is missing, then the question obviously arises whether it is secession or not. But obviously, when you are enjoying both de jure sovereignty and de facto sovereignty, such that the control over that territory is also within you, and you also have a legal right. Legally, also you claim that territory to be your own. Then you exercise both de jure plus de facto sovereignty. So Berubari is a case of de jure and de facto sovereignty. And in case you exercise both de jure and de facto sovereignty over a specific piece of land, if you want to transfer that territory to another state, it would amount to secession. Okay? Not merely ascertainment of boundary dispute. And because Derubari Union was a territory over which you exercise both these kinds of sovereignty, it is a secession. Because if you transfer that territory to Pakistan, you will have to bring about a change in the first schedule. Now, it cannot be argued what the court said, that India or the Parliament or the Union government does not have the power to cede the territory. It does have a power to cede the territory because it is sovereign. And sovereignty itself implies that you have control over your territory such that you can also transfer that territory to another state. Okay. Now, the manner, as I already told you, in which the rival contentions were declared to be an extreme and an absurd form of contention was that even if Article 133 does not expressly use the term seat, the Parliament can insert the word seat under Article 133 through constitutional amendment. Now, if the Parliament has the power to insert the word seat under Article 133 through constitutional amendment, that implies that Parliament does in fact have the power to cede the territory. Right? Please understand this argument. That if the Parliament can only bring about that amendment in the Constitution over which the Parliament has the power to make law. Okay? Or over which the Parliament has the power. So Parliament cannot go beyond the limitations imposed on it by the Constitution. Now, had Parliament passed a law amending Article 133C and including the word seat, that would very well have been considered to be a power that Parliament can exercise. That being said, essentially, Parliament does have the power to cede territory. Okay, it can do so because even if Article 133C does not expressly mention the word seat, that change under the 133C can be made by the Parliament to exercise of its constituent power under Article 368. So essentially, that means that the power to cede the territory has been vested in the Parliament. Okay, that is the argument that is being taken by the judgment. Now, if you have understood this, and let me know if you have not understood the flow of the argument or the manner in which the court is trying to answer the three questions that we raised initially. The first question that is required is the legislative action under Article 3 sufficient to cede the territory? Okay. Now, many of you, for example, Ravikant also says that right to cede the territory falls under Article 1, under Article 3. Now, let's just have a brief look again at Article 3. We have already gone through the text of Article 3, but again, let's again look at Article 3. Article 3 talks about formation of new states and alteration of areas, boundaries, or names of existing states. And it says that Parliament may by law merge states, separate states, diminish states, alter the boundary of states, etc., etc. And that is what is being said by the said in this case. Now, at the time when Derubari Union case was being decided, explanation 1 and 2, which are now a part of Article 3, were not a part of the Constitution. They were inserted subsequently. So if you have a text of the Constitution, what you will find is that Derubari Union case is a case that has been decided in 1960, and explanation 1 and 2 has been inserted in the Constitution through 18th Constitutional Amendment 1966. Now, the interpretation that was given to Article 3 by the judiciary was that Article 3 only mentions the term state. It does not mention the term union territory. Okay? Because obviously at that time explanation 1 and 2 were not there. Now it is very clear that the term state under Article 3A to 3E include the term union territory. But at that specific time explanation 1 and 2 were not there. So the argument that was, or what was held by the court was that Article 3A to E only talk about state and not about union territory. Now, if we try to locate a law under Article, try to say that a legislative action under Article 3 is sufficient to seize a territory, then what you would be arguing would be that Parliament by law can only seize states and not union territory, and that in itself is an absurd argument that was being said by the judgment, that because Article 3 does not include the term state does not include union territory. That means that Article 3 is only about ceding of states and not ceding of union territories. And therefore, because of this, and this is something that we need to understand, and therefore Article 3 is not a proper article to locate the right of the Parliament to cede territory in favor of another state. Now, What was needed was, therefore, the court said that we need to understand the reason why Article 3 was made. Now, the reason why Article 3 was made that if India, let's say, acquired any territory under Article 13C, now we have discussed this term acquisition of territory, okay? If acquisition meaning when India gets the power to, when India acquires a new territory and asserts absolute sovereignty over it, in the sense both de jure and de facto sovereignty, in those scenarios, that territory can be included as a part of any state. So, let's say Cooch Behar, and there is an example that how Cooch Behar became a part of West Bengal, etc., etc. So that territory becomes a part of the state, and it is with that regard that Article 3 was made, such that the boundaries of the state may be increased or diminished or altered depending upon what the parliament decides. But Article 3 was not basically about altering the boundary of the state, such that an alteration would lead to ceding that state, a part of that state to another nation. Now, this is an argument that was raised by one of you also in the previous class, that why not Article 3? Because when you alter the boundary of this, when you cede the territory to another state, you are also essentially altering the boundary of a state. Now, that is a completely valid argument. But ceding of, altering a boundary of the state in Article 3, as we have understood, does not amount to cannot amount to altering the boundary of Union of India. Altering the boundary of state under Article 3 only amounts to altering the boundary of states, such that it does not amount to altering the boundary of Union of India. Okay, and that was the rationale behind Article 3. And one of the reasons why such an interpretation was given to Article 3 was because, according to Berubari Union judgment, the term state under Article 3 does not include the term union territory. But please know that by 1966 amendment, 18th Constitutional Amendment 1966, an explanation was inserted under Article 3 wherein the term state now also includes union territory. And therefore, that specific holding of Berubari Union has now been overruled, or has been overruled by an amendment to the Constitution. But that does not imply that power to cede the territory under that is given to the parliament can be found under Article 3. That is not the conclusion even now. Article 3 is only confined to alteration of boundaries of states in a manner, states including union territories, in a manner that it does not lead to an alteration of boundary of Union of India. Please keep that very clear in your mind. So Article 3 has a specific rationale. Rationale being rearranging the boundaries of the state, not about rearranging the boundaries of Union of India per se. That is not something which Article 3 contemplates. Okay. Now, Ravikant also says, and that is something that was argued also in this case, that, okay, if not Article 3, right to secession, right to cede the territory can be found under Article 13C, because acquisition also implies secession. Now, what the court did was went into an elaborate rationale of what Article 13C is there in the Constitution. And what it argued was, very interestingly it argued, and this is how you will realize how interestingly where is it that the court found the right to cede in Constitution of India. And it's a very interesting proposition that leads to several further debates. And it's a very interesting term that it uses, which you'll find. I will show. We will come to those specific paragraphs. But let's say that, okay, court rejected the proposition that Article 3 is not about ceding territory, because Article 3 is not about bringing about a change in the external boundaries of India. Can it be found under Article 13C? Now, the court is saying that the rationale behind Article 13C was, at the time of independence, at the time when Constitution was being promulgated, India was still in the process of acquiring new territories. And that is why acquired territories were made a part of Article 1cc, such that when those territories were acquired, they would be established as new states under Article 2, and those newly acquired territories could be added to certain states under Article 3. So that was the rationale behind Article 1cc, that acquired territories. Nowhere does the term acquisition automatically imply the use of the word secession. Okay? So, this is the important aspect which this judgment discussed. Now, let us have a look at the important, and I hope it is clear till now, let us have a look at important paragraphs which help us determine where is it that right to speech can be found in the Indian Constitution. Now, the argument with regard to 130C is very clear, and what the court is saying, and maybe you would like to note these specific paragraphs. And the paragraphs that I'm quoting is from the FCC version of the reported case, and it is uploaded on your classroom. Okay, so you can refer to the judgment that is uploaded on your classroom and then locate the paragraph. That Article 130C does not confer power on India to acquire territories. It only provides for absorption or assimilation of acquired territories into India by virtue of its inherent right to, as a sovereign state, to acquire territory. Okay, but Article 130C does not confer power on India to acquire territory. Now, this is very important. When I say it does not confer power, but only recognizes that power. That means that the power to acquire territory by Union of India is not found under Article 130C. Please understand, this is a very important observation that the court has made. That the power is not located under Article 130C. 130C only recognizes that power. The power is found somewhere else. So 130C is not the provision where you find the power, where you will say that, okay, Article 130C is providing the power to the parliament to acquire territory. No, it is only recognizing power. So, Ravikant, when you argued that we find the power under Article 130C, your argument has been refuted by in Berubari Union by saying that no, the power is not found under Article 130C. There is only a recognition of power under Article 130C. The power is found somewhere else. Okay, where that somewhere else is, the court has not said yet. But the power is not found under Article 130C. So what it only does is it recognizes the power of India, which is a sovereign state, to acquire foreign territories, but not vesting India, a sovereign state, with the power to acquire the territory. So it's not a substantive provision conferring power on India. I hope this aspect is clear to all of you. That Article 130C is not something which talks about the power of the parliament to power of the conferring power on the parliament to acquire territory. Okay. So, in case you have any question, just try to unmute and speak rather than typing, if that is possible, because I'm not able to flip between the chat box and the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Now, the second important paragraph is paragraph 38. Okay, and please have a look at paragraph 38. It's there on your screen, and you can look in your case in the reported text as well. But what does Article 2 then do? Now, we are trying to look into each and every provision and try to find whether any of these articles from 1 to 4 confer on the parliament the power to acquire territory. What does Article 2 do? That it just provides that parliament can admit into union or establish new states on such terms and conditions that it thinks fit. That Article 2 also does not say that parliament has the power to acquire territory. Rather, it is talking about that situation or that part of the process wherein the territory has already been acquired by India. Okay? So what it is saying that it can establish it can admit into union or establish new states. Okay? It does not confer on the parliament again the power to acquire new territory, but rather the territories which have already been acquired and become part of India under Article 130C can now be admitted under the union under Article 2. And on whatever terms and conditions it deems fit. So the power to acquire is also not found under Article 2, rather it is found as much as, because Article 2 only contemplates of a situation or the process or that step of the process when the territory is already acquired. Okay? And it is the subsequent process of how to make it a part of Union of India that Article 2 is talking about. Now, we have already discussed that, how Parliament, the power can also not be found under Article 3, anywhere under Article 3 for several reasons which were quoted by Berubari Union. Obviously, one of that reasons now stand nullified. One of the argument or the logic that was given that because state does not include union territory, that's why you cannot find the power under Article 3. That has been nullified by the 18th Constitutional Amendment 1966. But apart from that, the reasoning that you cannot find the power under Article 3 still stands. because Article 3 is only about alteration of the inner boundaries. It is not about the alteration of external boundaries. Okay. Now, let's look at Article 4. Some of you in the previous class had also invoked Article 4. And this is something that we discussed in the previous class also, that the only objective of Article 4 is to let us know that any law that is made under Article 2 or 3 will not be considered to be a constitutional amendment under Article 368. That means that a law made under Article 2 and 3 is not a law made in exercise of constituent power. Therefore, if in furtherance of a law made under Article 2 and 3, you have to bring about a change in first and fourth schedule, the Parliament only needs to exercise its ordinary legislative power. And when I say ordinary legislative power, that means that the substantive and procedural restrictions under Article 368 are not applicable on the Parliament when it exercises its power under Article 2 and 3 and therefore brings the change under first and fourth schedule. That is the only effect of Article 4. So what the court has tried to do is try to argue or hold that power to acquire or power to cede the territory is neither found under Article 1(3)(c), nor under Article 2, nor under Article 3, nor under Article 4. Something very similar to what Akash and Sagar were saying. And it is not found under the Constitution. 1 to 4, you will not find the power of the Parliament to acquire a territory. Okay? Or cede a territory. Then where is it found? That is a very important question. Now, at paragraph 43, what the court is saying that, again, it is basically talking about the same thing, that once a foreign territory becomes a part of Indian territory, Article 1(3)(c) comes into play and 3A comes into play, but the power to acquire and cede the territory is per se not found under from Article 1 to Article 4. Now let's come to a very interesting paragraph, that is paragraph 46. Okay. Now please look at the last line which has been highlighted and underlined. Now the argument which was given, one of the argument which was given by the state was that Article 3(c) allows the Parliament the power to cede national territory in favor of another state. An argument very similar to one of the argument that was being given by one of you in the previous class, that because it says diminish the area of any state, when we are diminishing the area of any state, Article 3(c), it can also mean diminishing the area of a state in a manner that particular area is being transferred to another territory. But the court has already said that no, that is not the case. When we are talking about Article 3(c), we are talking about only that kind of alteration of boundary of states such that it does not lead to a diminution of the territory of India per se. Okay? So that is how we have to understand Article 3(c). Now the court has already said that we do not find this power to cede the territory either under 1, 2, 3 or 4. Then where is it found? Now court says, please look at the last line. It is found outside the Constitution and can be exercised by India as a sovereign state. So the power of the Parliament to cede a territory is not vested by any provisions of the Constitution. Rather, it is found outside the Constitution and it is an inherent power which is exercised by the Parliament in exercise of its sovereignty. Now, sovereignty is something which has been attributed, and India is a sovereign country that has been recognized even in the preamble, irrespective of whether Perubari considered preamble to be a part of India or not. So, sovereignty is something which is recognized as an attribute of Union of India, Republic of India. And what the court is saying that the secession of territory or the power to cede the territory or power to acquire the territory, which is an essential attribute of sovereignty, is not found specifically in any provision but outside the Constitution. And when it said outside the Constitution, it gives an implication that it is an extra constitutional power that is invested in the Parliament. That is not found anywhere in the Constitution. And again, this can be subjected to debate. So it is a debatable conclusion that whether the state can have any power which is outside the Constitution or something which is outside the Constitution. Now, one of the answers to this dilemma would be maybe arguing that the constituent power does allow the Parliament the right to cede the territory, because by size of its constituent power, the parliament can confer on itself the right to cede the territory, something which has been argued by Vedubari Union. But in this paragraph at least, and this paragraph has often confused me as to why is it that the court said that it is outside the constitution, and what are the repercussions and consequences of this specific statement that essential attributes of sovereignty are outside the constitution. Don't we function under a premise that whatever power has been vested on the government is within the framework of the constitution? So one of the arguments that comes to my mind is that maybe we can argue that the parliament, in exercise of its constituent power, can vest. So the constituent power at least is something within which the power to cede the territory resides in the parliament. So that is an argument that may be set, because again you are exercising your constituent power to cede the territory if you require an amendment. So that is one maybe an answer to this apparent confusion that the statement creates. But at least in paragraph 46, what has been argued by the court is that sovereignty, the essential attributes of sovereignty are outside the constitution because it is not found under Article 1, 2, 3 and 4 and can be exercised by India as a sovereign state. And thereafter what the court said was that the agreement amounts to secession of a part of territory of India in favor of Pakistan. And because it requires alteration of first schedule, and it would lead to a decrease in the territory of the Union of India, the only form in which you can cede the territory is by making an amendment under Article 368. Okay? The only manner in which secession of territory is allowed is if you make an amendment under Article 368. And therefore, if the Parliament has to give effect to an agreement, it needs to make a law under Article 368, wherein the first schedule, the relevant part of the first schedule is altered, and thereafter the territory is ceded to foreign state. Now, please remember that Article 4 though says that any law, that amendment of first schedule is not something which is a part of Article 368, but only that form of amendment of first schedule which is pursuant to a law made under Article 2 and 3. Now, because ceding of territory is not done under Article 2 and 3, therefore, for amending the first schedule, what you need to do is, you need to bring about a constitutional amendment. Now, amendment to first schedule is not an exercise of constituent power under Article 368 only in the limited situation where the amendment is being brought to the first schedule is in exercise of a law made under Article 2 and 3. Please try to understand this distinction. All forms of amendment to first schedule are not outside the scope of Article 368. Only those forms of amendment to first schedule which are made in exercise of rights of law or pursuant to laws made under Article 2 and 3. And what are the kind of laws that we talk about in Article 2 and 3, where the internal boundaries of India are being adjusted, not the external boundaries. So only when there is an adjustment of internal boundaries of India or alteration of internal boundaries of India in pursuant to a law made under Article 2 or Article 3, and subsequent to that we need to make a change in first schedule, can you do it outside Article 368 through ordinary legislative power by passing through a simple majority. But if you are making a change in first schedule, wherein there is a alteration of external boundary of India, because alteration of external boundary of India does not come within the confines of Article 2 and 3, then you cannot do that through the exercise of ordinary legislative power, through simple majority. You will have to bring about a constitutional amendment under Article 368. And by doing that, only in exercise of constituent power can you alter first schedule such that the alteration leads to the alteration of the external boundaries of India. Okay, so please understand this difference. All forms of changes in first schedule or amendment in first schedule is not something which does not fall under Article 368. Okay, this is something that you need to be very clear on, conceptually very clear. So don't ever argue that first schedule can be amended through simple exercise of an ordinary legislative power. Not always. If the amendment to first schedule is something that leads to secession, then it requires an exercise of constituent power. So now, however, what the court said that what the parliament can, however, do is that it can amend Article 3 and amend Article 3 in such a manner to exercise of its constituent power, that even secession of territory of India in favor of foreign state is made a part of Article 3. So, and if such a law is constitutional amendment is passed, then the parliament may become competent to make law under Article 3 to implement the agreement in question. But if that is not the case, you need to make a law under Article 368. So now let's come to the first line. Okay, the three questions that were raised in this case. Is any legislative action required? Yes, it is required. For implementation of agreement relating to Berubari Union, yes, it is required because it is a secession of territory. Secession because over Berubari, you exercised both de jure and de facto sovereignty. Is a law of parliament relatable to Article 3 of the Constitution sufficient for this purpose? No, it is not sufficient for this purpose. Okay? Is an amendment required? Yes, an amendment is required under Article 368 to cede the territory. Now, however, what can be done is, either you bring about an amendment under constitutional amendment and under Article 368 to cede the territory, or you bring an amendment under Article 368 to amend Article 3 itself, wherein you confer on the Parliament to cede the territory and thereafter pass a law under Article 3 to cede the territory. So either you take a two-step process. First process that you amend Article 3 under Article 2 exercise of power under Article 368 and then pass a law under Article 3, or you simply bring a constitutional amendment and cede the territory and bring about a change in the first schedule. So this is what Berubari Union is about, okay? Different aspects of Berubari Union. Just let me know if you have any questions, and I hope the case is clear. So there are several points that you will still need to remember for discussion of Berubari Union. But the most important point being that if you need to cede the territory, you do need a legislative action.
दोस्तों, ब्रास फ्यूजन आशा करता है कि आपको हमारा लेसन पसंद आया होगा। कमेंट बॉक्स में अपना फीडबैक देना ना भूलें।